Support WrestleTalk!
Give us a subscribe.
The Bloodline destroyed Roman Reigns, and I've got a feeling that this Jacob Fatu guy might be the next guy in WWE.
I don't think he's injured, you know.
Oh, no,
Just going to say it.
What?
I'm just going to say it.
You think that this might have all been a big worky
Big
work
old
face?
in wrestling. It might have been.
Well, maybe. Well, let's find out. He could have had a really miraculous recovery.
Or he might just be so mad that he's just like, yeah, I'm going to use this broken foot as a super kick machine.
Well, I am Luco in DAD. This is the Professor Dan Layton, and welcome to the WrestleTalk Podcast review of SmackDown and AEW Collision, which was a terrific edition of AEW Collision, which I very much enjoyed. And this was a very good episode of SmackDown.
What I found quite interesting watching both of them is that actually they're weirdly parallel. They both feature sort of a big women's setup angle. They both feature a tag team main event kind of thing. I was like, there are parallels here that we can get into this week.
I like it.
Which is quite interesting. It doesn't normally happen in that direct a fashion.
And for wrestling...
And a sort of a mid-card flippy match.
Yeah. And for wrestling fans who are fans of actual wrestling and not just, solely focused on one company over the other, what a great time we've had over this weekend.
Oh, yeah.
Two very good shows. We've had some really good NXT episodes recently. Raw's been on fire. And Dynamite. It's all in this coming weekend.
It certainly is.
I'm on like a wrestling high right
now
because it's Riot Cabaret on the Friday. It's Rev Pro on the Saturday. I'm still kind of on a bit of a high from the York Hall show last weekend. And then it's all in. They announced it's all in Texas.
Sort of a good run-up of like Raw and SmackDown, and then also Dynamite has been popping the all-in. This time last year, I was whinging left, right, and center that they weren't doing all-in.
You called it all-insurrection.
I did. That was really funny of me. Yeah.
It was a good line.
Yeah, but like that's not the case now. It feels like both of these shows are sort of leading somewhere and driving forward, and this kind of lead into the autumn season is exciting. Stuff's going on.
And the main event we had on SmackDown was Solo Sikoa looking to come out and call out Roman Reigns. Because Roman Reigns returned at SummerSlam and laid him out. And then he laid him out again on SmackDown. And so he was like, hey, do you know what? If you want to come and take the Ulafala, is it?
Well, so yeah, here's the thing. I keep calling it a lay. And it's not, which is I know is not true. And I was like, I'm sorry, I can't remember what it's actually called. And then I was at the opening of the Premier League, the opening game. There was a big event in Piccadilly Circus, and I was there because I'm really special. And I was chatting to a chap who watches the show. Hello, nice to see you. And he was like, you always get it wrong. And I'm like, I know, I'm so sorry. So I was writing the notes for this show, and liberal uses of the word Ulafale in this, which is the correct one.
It is the correct term.
Yeah.
So he's like, if you want to be the tribal chief, then come and take this from me. They had a really nice segment earlier in the night. There are two backstage segments with Solo and Tama Tonga, where like Tama Tonga was like, I'm
well, so in my notes, Tama Tonga said something, but I couldn't hear it because everyone was chatting OTC.
Yeah.
Tama Tonga is insistent on delivering his lines in a very quiet way, and I kind of like it, but also I need speak up. I don't know what you're saying, but yeah, there was this kind of like recurring thing of, I appreciate that you acknowledge me. It's time for someone else to acknowledge me as well.
And I thought Solo's line where he said, look, if Roman takes this from me, we will acknowledge him. Like this is not just some gimmick that Solo is stealing. Like this means something to him. And he's like, look, if he stands up and he takes this from me, then he is our tribal chief.
It's his righteous sort of belief that he is the tribal chief now because Roman failed.
Yeah.
And he stepped up. Whereas like, so it's that kind of higher, and it explains why Roman is so beholden to this.
It's also like, it doesn't mean that he's just a dastardly villain who's been planning this all along.
Yeah.
It's not like Mariah May who's been like, I've been planning on stabbing you in the back for years. Like Solo was like, no, we need someone to step up, and I'm the guy to step up. But if Roman comes and he steps back up, then yeah, we will all acknowledge
Which
him.
ties in all the way back to the very beginning of this whole thing where, he's crying in the Hell in a Cell being like, I need to do this for our family. This is what it's all about. So it's kind of, again, it's not just an honorific. It's not just a title. It is a whole reason to be.
So Solo called out Roman.
This is my segment.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I went into autopilot there.
Yeah,
I apologize.
Collision boy. I've got the notes.
Look, I acknowledge you.
Thank you very much.
As the guy who refused the SmackDown portion of this podcast.
So Solo is in the ring and he's demanding acknowledgement from Orlando, who say, no, ma'am. And he wastes no time in calling out Roman. The lights turn blue. The music hits. The crowd are on their feet. They've got the ones up. This Orlando crowd was tasty.
Oh, wasn't it just?
All episode, they were great. And as they have a little stare down in the ring, Solo takes off the Ulafale and hands it to Tama, who smiles. He smiles himself, and then they throw hands, and it's like immediately everyone's like in, and it's that whole kind of like batter. What's it? I saw a post on X about like what it's called based on the original like MMA fight. That sort of
Why did you do that?
Because I'm a fool. Anyway. Solo sort of sends Roman into the ropes, rebounds with a huge lariat that gets a massive roar. Tama's in from behind, but he takes his eye off the ball long enough to be hit with... It's a rock bottom. I keep calling it a rock bottom. It's not. It's an Uranagi. But it's a rock bottom because it's the bloodline. I can't help but see that in there. On the outside, he takes apart the table and goes to powerbomb Tama through it, kind of like he did with Tonga Loa, but Solo interrupts, puts Roman back in the ring. Roman ducks a Samoan spike and hits a Superman punch, and it's the first time I've been excited for a Superman punch in probably 10 years.
You were there for SummerSlam.
Yeah, but like the Superman punch does nothing for me. I really don't like the Superman punch as a finish. For me, it's just a dink. It doesn't feel like it feels like it, whereas a spear feels like I'm going to come after you. That lariat that Roman hit the other minute in this segment felt like it was really something. This time the Superman punch made me go, yes! So great, it's all working. A giant ooh-ah, OTC chants, everything's massive, big spear. He goes and reaches for the Ulafale, picks it up and raises it in the air and puts it on his neck, and it's almost like transcendent the way he's giving a facial expression.
I wrote in my notes here, it's almost orgasmic for him to put this back on.
It's something, and also the way that it's being lit, which is brighter than normal or something like that, feels like this real moment. He's really selling it as this like, my arm is complete again kind of thing. And the crowd are screaming their asses off, which is fantastic. But oh no, here comes Jacob Fatu, who literally super kicks the Ulafale off. Like, as Roman lands to the mat, the Ulafale falls away.
I think a bit of it actually fell off.
Yeah, which was kind of one of those accidental, incredible visuals that is going to really, it could be used very nicely. And he's also, he's using the medical boot from his supposed injury. It may well have been a real injury. It may well have been a real tweak.
The story is that it was not. This was always a working injury because they wanted to delay Roman and Jacob getting physical in the ring.
And if you're going to have, as we sort of said in the SummerSlam review, if you're going to have Roman come back, you're going to have him take out Fatu. And you don't want that because based on the evidence, not only of this, but also the selling of that potential injury, Fatu is unreal.
Yeah.
Jacob Fatu is it.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
So to see him sort of ragdoll Roman Reigns in this moment is quite incredible. He sends Roman into the post. He just sort of screams in his face and then into the corner and hits a hellacious hip attack that makes Roman do the best meme face you've ever seen. He's sort of like on the floor like, ugh. And then Jacob sends Roman to the outside. Now Solo is back in. He's feeling his oats. He's kind of like, yeah, everything's great again. They pick Roman up. Solo delivers the shield powerbomb through the table. And they drag Roman's limp body back in the ring. Tama recrowns Solo, and they throw their ones up as Roman is prone on the floor, which 2 weeks hence from his return, and he's down.
This is the segment I really wanted.
Yeah.
Like, this is kind of what I sort of talked about this on the Raw review when we did this last week, was the whole, this new Judgment Day, feeling like they're not getting any heat because they're always just being beaten up. Like they are a group of just jobber nobodies who just get laid out by the bigger boys in Damian Priest and Rhea Ripley. So I don't take them as a serious threat. I'm looking at Bash and Berlin and I'm like, this feels very one-sided because I've already seen these two wipe these clowns out before. And kind of with the bloodline angle we had last week, like Roman just destroying the entire new bloodline on his own. Of course, it's Roman Reigns, but you're also like, yeah, but Solo was supposed to be your top challenger for the belt. He's like, he kind of still is your number one heel. It's like, it's kind of weird to just be laying him out like this. And it's when I watch this segment here and he's just like chumpatizing Solo again. I'm like, man, it feels like they've just given up on this Solo guy. Like because this is the third time in 2 weeks that he's laid him out. And that's because Jacob's the guy. Solo ain't the guy anymore. Jacob is the new, and maybe it's just the Buzz Lightyear effect of he's just the shiny new toy, but I also think he's just a better toy than Woody is. And I think Jacob's like awesome. And him laying out Roman Reigns really makes you be like, Oh, hot damn. Well, sure, Tama Tonga's a nobody, and Tonga Loa is a nobody, and I don't buy Solo as a threat, but I buy this Jacob guy as a threat. Like, I buy him as the top heel on this brand.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because you kind of have that like parallel with the OG bloodline where the Usos were tag champs, but also if like Jimmy's the first one to get taken out, I'm not going to think less of the bloodline. Do you know what I mean? But then to have
sort of stand up in their own rights.
And for a while, Solo was the Jacob. And so now Solo's taken this position as head of the table, and it has felt hollow the whole time, kind of because it's not that he won it or got the endorsement of the elders. He just took it. Hasn't spoken to Roman or has spoken to Roman. That was the whole question, like whether or not, Roman would ever show up again. And in this moment now, there is that sort of like hollow crown kind of thing. Meanwhile, Jacob is the new Solo. And even down to when at SummerSlam he was screaming, finish him in the same way that Solo did that to Roman. You've kind of got this fascinating little parallel. And I do agree, I think it was needed to have this moment of... and the crowd got both.
Yeah.
We got that cool, the incredible moment of Roman's power-ups and Roman just being like, I'm Roman Reigns, right? I'm going to lariat your head off. But then to see that he can be overpowered and it's actually not going to be that easy for him. And maybe we have a first match with Solo and Roman and it doesn't go down. Maybe this is what we get in lieu of a match, and actually Roman realizes that he does need to... I'm thinking how we get to the point where Roman realizes he can't just take on the bloodline on his own, especially with the shadow of the final boss somewhere in the ether. I think it was very necessary.
I think so too. I thought it was a really effective segment in that sense as well, because it was like Roman running wild is so good and it's so over with the crowd, and it is like what this story necessitates, which is Roman is the guy of this family. He is the top dog for a reason. He has been, world champion for however many, like 1,000+ days or whatever it was, for a reason. So him running through Tama Tonga, absolutely. Running through Tonga Loa, absolutely. And if you are not really that... And I think with Solo, I don't think it's just that Jacob feels like the Buzz Lightyear here because he's the new toy. I think a lot of it is the lack of follow-up to squashing John Cena last November. That doesn't make Solo feel like a credible threat anymore. He's just felt like a guy that's there. And it's like, a part of that is the hollow crownness, but I think you can have the hollow crownness with also... establishing what you did or carrying on what you established back in November when he squashed John Cena.
I don't disagree with that at all.
So him running through Solo is what it is. But when Jacob gets in and Jacob lays out Roman Reigns, you're like, oh, like it's just really, really good. And he's got such great intensity to him as well. And him actually now lifts up the rest of the group. So like his presence, when they did the Shield powerbomb, I bought into Solo again. I'm buying into Tama Tonga again. Right. So like he really is elevating this new bloodline. And it makes me want to see Roman find what he needs to do in order to bring back his old family members, like reunite the Usos, get Sammy or, whatever they're going to do, which is what I imagine they're going to do. I want to see him have to go through this. I think you made the point there. It's like, I think you need to have these moments where he has that doubt of like, sure, last week I did this on my own, but with Jacob Fatu there, I can't do this on my own.
Because I also think maybe it doesn't undermine it, but it's sort of, if you've lost to Cody and then you're back and you're actually just like fire, it's sort of a little bit makes it feel like, well, was that ever really a threat? Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, and I think every good babyface needs to have that level of vulnerability and that level of adversity where it feels like it's all is lost in every single movie where you go and you want to see the good guy win. There's got to be a moment where they feel like they're never going to be able to get it done. And a few more moments like this, maybe how you legitimize it is giving Solo a win over Roman, and it is this massive shock. I don't know where or when that happens, but I'm kind of intrigued by that as a prospect.
That's what I would do.
Yeah.
If I was like in charge of this, that would be the suggestion I would make. It's like, I think if you want to establish Solo, if you want to certainly re-establish him, have him beat Roman.
And I'm not saying necessarily it has to be a clean one.
No.
But like Roman gets maybe it's bad blood. Roman loses to Solo because of in a classic Roman Reigns loss, like which was talked about last week with Kevin Owens and Nick Aldis. Like, he was going to talk to Roman about maybe him getting a little rematch, and then Kevin's like, but he's never won it clean, like all of this stuff. him be the victim of that would be kind of interesting.
Yeah, him being on the other side of the bloodline beatdown that he was, in charge of for so long, is a really good, compelling character piece for him.
I saw Paul Heyman say it's like that they don't. Well, he said his line again about them not quite being in the third inning. Or whatever. And I don't understand baseball enough to know what inning is what, but it does feel like we're in the beginning of this next part of the story proper now. Like we had the sort of epilogue / prologue since WrestleMania, and now we're in.
Absolutely, yeah. And I'm really, really excited for what is next within this story. I feel like Paul Heyman, when he says that, and the more he says it, the more I'm like, you don't know what the end point is, do you? You don't know how you're ending this story, do you?
Well, this is the thing. You've got to. I always think when you're writing a story, you have to have a beginning and you have to have an end in mind, and then how you get there is up to you. It's Paul Levesque, the GPS. As he would say.
Oh yeah.
You pop the GPS in and then see where you go. And if you can navigate it well, just don't, force a Bran ending when it's not necessary. Anyway, should we do the rest of the show?
Please do.
So we had an opening with a recap of last segment and Solo arriving with Tama Tonga. Nia Jax's title celebration is how we kick off the show with Tiffany Stratton in the ring, which is bedecked in pink balloons, unicorns, pink champagne, and of course Pretty Deadly. She introduces Nia, who is all in white, incredible, whose hair is correct. Her makeup is pristine. She's wearing the crown on a gilded throne being carted to the ring, and it is so fierce. When I was watching this, I was just on my feet. I was obsessed. I love this entrance so much. She gets in the ring and she thanks Tiffy. She says, but it's an awful lot of pink. It's not really my style. My style is more destruction, which she proved at SummerSlam. She says that everyone should bow down to her. There is no better place than to start with Tiffany bowing down to her, which is very Daenerys Targaryen, bend the knee. Very, I am the queen, and I know that you have a claim to my throne, Jon Snow. Bend the knee. And Tiffany is very clever with this. She says, oh yeah, I'll bow. Of course I will. But let's do that after Pretty Deadly have performed, and they'll bow down too because the men should also bow down.
Yeah.
So she's delaying. Then Pretty Deadly give a preview of Pretty Deadly the musical, and they say without further ado, which is incorrect. Adieu is a French word meaning goodbye. What you mean is further ado. This is a thing like how the past participle of cast is not casted. So if someone has been cast in a film, they weren't casted in a film, they were cast in a film. Language evolves. Yeah. Language is a living thing. I'll die on this hill. Some words mean things.
Look, I just think people using French words and sentences is a bit passé.
Trouble chief. Anyway, once I've got past that egregious use of linguistics, they then sing a song, and it is certainly terrible, and I absolutely love it.
Oh, yeah.
Just as they hit the dance break, however, Michin slides into the ring and ruins everything because she batters Nia and Tiffy with a kendo stick. They bail, so she's left with Pretty Deadly, and she leathers them instead. And notably, no one has bent the knee. This segment was stupid, and I liked it.
Do you know what? I've said it before on the show before. I'm not on social media much these days. Certainly not on Twitter anyway. I'm pretty active on the old Instagram, but not in a wrestling capacity. But I do go on there to sort of see what's
we want to see the roundups.
I want to see what people takes on certain things. Two points about this is that if you were to go on Twitter, you would assume that this and the Naomi versus Blair Davenport match were unmitigated disasters. I thought this was absolutely fine.
Yeah.
I thought this was actually very entertaining. I think the Tiffany stuff in particular was really good. I think Nia's great. Pretty Deadly as a little addition to this act is actually really, really good.
They kind of matched Tiffany's freak.
They're not doing
use the parlance.
They're not doing anything in the tag division. So this is a much better use of than them not doing anything.
Yeah, not being on the show.
It was. I think you could certainly look at this segment and say this feels very Vince. This feels very 2019. But it was actually if this was done in 2019, you'd been like, oh, it's better than some of the segments we get. It feels at home within this 2019 world that I've created, but it's better than all the other stuff we're getting here in 2019. I found this very entertaining.
Yeah, I think some segments akin to this. When you think of This Is Your Life, what do you first think of?
The Red Book. Oh, sorry.
In a WWE
in a WWE thing. The Bayley Alexa Bliss one?
Right, which was dreadful, but there was also a This Is Your Life segment with The Rock and Mankind, which was incredible.
Yeah.
So like these segments have a place in the WWE style of pro wrestling. And for me, I see exactly where people would come from if they say this feels like a Vince segment. I just feel like it feels like an entertainment segment.
Yeah.
And honestly, this is light years ahead of anything. It's a low bar, but it's a light years ahead of anything that we would have got in that 2019. If we got it in 2019, we'd have been like, this is great, because not only was it silly light entertainment that genuinely was kind of funny, gives Pretty Deadly something to do, as you say. Yes, they're not in the tag division, but it furthers their character, furthers their sort of obnoxiousness, so that when they do slot back into the tag division here and there and start jockeying for position, we know who they are versus just trying to heat up. Oh, whose turn is it for the women's tag belts this
100%.
month? So that's good. It really solidifies Tiffy's character as, being, I'm going to do this celebration. It's very Tiffany coded. It's got nothing to do with Nia Jax. Yeah. And it acknowledges, in a, albeit not very subtle way, that Nia Jax sees Tiffany Stratton as a threat.
Yeah.
It achieved an awful lot of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And I found it quite entertaining.
Honestly, like, if you'd have done this segment in... we're using 2019 as the example here, but... If this sort of segment was in 2019, those 4 people probably wouldn't have been into it, because it is just like there was a bit of a stench of just like, oh, this is what we have to do.
It's embarrassing.
We're going out to do this absolutely awful, trite nonsense, and we're not really into it. But these are into it, and they're into it for the reasons you've just laid out there. This is not just being done to be a comedy segment. Every single beat of this is done for a reason, for a purpose, and it is there to build up matches.
Yeah.
And I think that's really good, and I think it really achieved what it set out to do.
To draw a weird comparison, just because you mentioned them being into it, we're 10 years in the 10-year anniversary of the New Day. The New Day had no reason to work, let alone become a 10-year thing, because it was just a thing that was thrown together with no real thought as to why it would be this way.
I mean, their original plan was to be the New Nation.
Right.
Like, they didn't know what this group was. They were like, okay, well, you're a preacher, because that's what Big E was sort of doing at the time, and then we'll sort of figure out what we're going to do with you. Like, one of the names for the New Day was Fresh Coat of Paint.
Right.
Like, they didn't know what this group was.
But by virtue of the 3 of them going, right, let's turn lead into gold, let's be fully into our characters, let's work on this together and be in it, that's what gets it over, even in an era where the rest of it wasn't. The fact that when people buy into and believe what they're doing, it elevates anything. And I think that this existing alongside generally just better programming makes it a segment
100%.
that works.
Yeah, absolutely.
And gives people a reason to believe.
Michin's certainly an interesting choice for first challenger. Like,
they've got previous.
Yeah, they've got previous, like the connection with her and Bayley to a degree. So yeah, like it's a fine choice. But it's like, proper first program. We need to give Nia a win.
Yeah, and I
don't
like
think anyone
to see...
believes that Mia Yim is going to win the belt.
No, but so it's interesting. We'll come back to that thought with a segment later on. But I like the fact that she's first of all had a nice run out down in NXT around the women's North American scene. Had a bunch of really good little matches down there. Reminded people that she's actually very good, and it's not just like open the door and who pops out. It's someone who does have previous, who has been a part of that Bayley, Nia, Tiffy triangle. 100%. She's sort of the fourth wheel of that. And now it's her turn to step into that spotlight. Yeah. And it makes sense. I really appreciate that. I think that's good. Backstage, the big 3, Naomi, Jade, and Bianca, are watching the screen, and they talk about their very demure, very mindful celebration when they beat the Witchy Girls next week. Do you know what that is?
No.
Great. I do. Just wanted to check. It's a meme. It's a TikTok.
Okay.
It's currently.
I know one thing from TikTok, which is something my wife told me, which is I'm looking for a man in finance.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That I do know.
Okay. So you're not like completely averse to.
Well, my wife did have a 1 week on TikTok, and then at the end of that week decided that TikTok was not for her. So I have heard nothing about what else is on TikTok since. Very
demure and very mindful of her. Anyway, they're all quite happy that they're going to be facing the Witchy Girls of Blair, the Unholy Union, next week. Carmelo Hayes, meanwhile, comes up and invites them to his after party when he beats Andrade, only for Jade to remind him that Andrade is 2 up in their feud, and they leave. Carmelo then takes from this that they've been watching his matches, which is superb delulu of his character. Really appreciate that. We go straight then into Andrade versus Carmelo Hayes, which is, I really love this division.
Yeah.
And this was when I sort of was watching this and was like, I feel like I'm watching 03 SmackDown.
And
I'll get into why when we get there. Because it starts off with Melo being very sort of avoidant, sliding out of the ring, managing to get an advantage by crashing Andrade off the top. There's a springboard clothesline that gets a 2. His momentum is then stopped by a wicked dropkick by Andrade and a moonsault to the outside. The story of the match overall, I wrote here in the first half because I was writing as I went, but then it kind of became the story for the whole match, is Melo has figured Andrade out.
Yeah.
Because he keeps sliding out of the ring or wriggling out of moves that are being set up. They're grappling for control. They're constantly trying to take advantage of each other. Andrade hits a Spanish fly for a near fall. The crowd at this point are on their feet. He goes to do the knees, but Melo's figured him out again and hits a super kick. But he's cocky taking advantage of that, so Andrade hits 2 of the 3 amigos, but the third is reversed by Carmelo again into a neck breaker. They trade roll-up pins, and it's Melo who manages to hit a high knee for 2. Then runs straight into Andrade's elbow, which, in my opinion, just looks like the most vicious thing in the world and should get more pinfalls.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
He proper laid that in.
Half the time, it looks like he doesn't mean to do it.
Yeah. Well, that's it. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like the brilliance of the move a little bit. It's why when Charlotte started doing it, it just looked incredibly clumsy.
Right.
Andrade makes it work.
Well, because Charlotte is tall and lanky, and Andrade is more stocky. So when you've got more limb, you need to use it in a different way.
Yeah.
Whereas Andrade can just properly elbow you out of the way. It's fantastic. I love it. But it only gets a 2 count. Andrade kind of...
Sorry, just say again. Like, laid it in. Sorry, Ula Falla'd it in.
Very good. Well done. Everybody give him a little clap. Everybody give him a little clap. Andrade goes to the top, signals for a moonsault, but Carmelo moves, goes for a tilt-a-whirl into the message, but Melo reverses again. He gets a small package, and that's what keeps Andrade's shoulders down for the 3. I love this US title division. For me, it's competitive matches that could go either way. Endings like this that feel like, I just got you, really work for me.
Yeah. So I think the sort of comparison you're making there is like, I think to use SmackDown 03 is kind of sort of a big nebulous term, but certainly SmackDown 6 era, which like it's amazing. Like that's having now gone back and I've had to watch a bit of it recently for 3 count episodes where we've done like every 2002 pay-per-view, every 2003 pay-per-view, and now we've done every 2004 pay-per-view in 3 words or less / fewer. I've actually gone back and re-logged this. That SmackDown 6 period doesn't last very long. It's only about 6 months, like half a year, and then Edge gets injured, and then sort of everyone sort of like splints off after that. But this has got a bit of SmackDown 6 about it because these two have gone out there. They're having banging matches. Like this is the 3rd one they've had in almost as many weeks, and it's all awesome. Then you look with like LA Knight and Escobar over there. Like it really is quite a stacked little mid-card that you've got here. And now that the US title is back on SmackDown and is being featured again, this is where like these guys can shine. And like Andrade and Carmelo heads because they brawl afterwards. Like Andrade refuses to shake their hands, they get into a brawl. Really feels like they've almost gone into an unofficial best of 5 series.
Kind of. And I like that when you put those words on it, it sort of feels a little bit like we're going to do 5 and whatever. By virtue of them getting here. And then also not only that, but the crowd were chanting, let them fight in a big way. Because they're having a brawl. The officials come down. They try and separate them. The chant is let them fight. And it feels very organic and real. And the heat is there. And it's exciting. The quality of the match is good. It's also nice that Carmelo is smartening up. I think 2 losses quite early on in this sort of feud makes sense. He's the new guy. Andrade is a seasoned veteran, former NXT champion. Carmelo is as well, though. So in this moment, Carmelo is learning. And this really showed that Andrade can't just go out there and do his hits because Carmelo's wised up. Yeah. And actually, it's the cockiness and the arrogance that is now his own downfall. But in this instance, it worked. So I really like it.
If I, again, to bring up the ghost of 2019, if this was, 5 years ago, we'd have been looking at me like, just booking the same match over and over again. But it doesn't feel like that. Again, because the matches are telling a story. Because unlike what, Booker T keeps saying in interviews, where it's like, no one wants to watch wrestling, they want to watch entertainment. You can have entertainment within wrestling matches. Yeah. And you can tell stories within wrestling matches. And they are telling stories within these wrestling matches and getting over their characters because you can do both. I don't know why we've decided that we've separated church and state, and you are either a wrestling company or you're a story company. Wrestling is either wrestling or it is a story thing, when they actually are one and the same. And I think this is great. And I think they've, within the 3 matches they've had here, Melo feels so much more over now. And he feels not just over, he feels more rounded now. And Andrade, who's been treading water since he came back, suddenly feels like an actual character on SmackDown. I think this is great.
And someone who, when his music hits, I'm like, lean forward.
Yeah, totally.
Lean forward. We have the first of our segments with Solo backstage, and then we have a video package from Giovanni Vinci. And when you were talking about the little US title picture, there's another one who slots right in there.
I hope so.
Because on the merit of his work in Imperium and the tag divisions, he was the third figure.
Yeah.
And I would always go, oh yeah, you're really good.
Absolutely.
And so I would like very much the idea of him slotting into that division and just it being this cycle of jockeying for position kind of thing.
I made a joke on the 3 count that this is going to go nowhere. He's the new Veer Mahan.
Just constantly reminding us how rich he is.
That's it. He's just going to have video packages being like, I'm going to be coming back soon, and when I do, I'm going to be coming all over the place. Like Veer Mahan, I'm like, this is going to lead to sweet FA.
Yeah.
And I still think it may very well lead to sweet FA.
I have hopes, especially... Look, he doesn't need to be anything massive, but just coming in and being a part of this competitive US title division. That's what I would like. Yep. It's time for a tag team... No, it's not. It's time for a singles match, between Naomi and Blair Davenport. Roxanne Perez is at ringside. This match, for me, was hit and miss. I thought Blair took a great bump early on from the rear view, slides outside, Naomi hits a split and gets in her face. It's a high crossbody that gets a 2. Back from the break, Blair has taken the upper hand after a top rope stomp into a senton that was apparently an accident, but I thought looked fine, and they should have just pretended it wasn't an accident.
Yeah.
I don't know why they pointed out that it was an accident that was taken advantage of. That's just something that sometimes Corey Graves is incredible at finding a way to not just cover up for a mistake, but give you a reason. So I think when Damian Priest hurt his leg, Drew McIntyre going for it gave a reason at Clash of the Castle. This is he sort of took a second to explain why Drew was confused because he can't win with the when the champ is in the ropes, but going after him and all that stuff. He's really smart at finding a way to emphasize that, but he's also a real stickler, and in fact they all are. I don't know if this is just a directive for pointing out mistakes. And not letting them just be, which kind of gets on my nerves a little bit. They meet in the middle with crossbodies, and this is the first part where I really noticed they're a little bit hesitant. Naomi gets the upper hand, hits a springboard enziguri, another split splash for 2, drop kick into the corner, and then she goes for a split leg moonsault, which is countered by Blair into a big stomp in the corner. This stomp was really nice, and then a sort of V-trigger situation for the surprise win. What I've written is I'm glad this match had time, but there was a whiff of uncertainty about each of them. It's almost like they weren't 100% comfortable in there. And I thought at times they did bump well for each other, but the rhythm was off. And it had also been all Naomi, really, until the finish, which was weird.
Yeah. I think this is one of those situations of it shows what high bar we now have for in-ring work, where Twitter will have you convinced that this match was an absolute train wreck and a disaster, when the reality is it was broadly fine. It was, the work for the most part was fine.
Yeah.
But the standard of wrestling is so high now that if you have a match that is broadly fine, it is like, whoa, wheels came off this one.
Yeah.
You're right. They were not on the same page at times, but it was not an absolute train wreck.
No, it wasn't.
It was just okay. It was fine. It was given time, which is, it's what we've been calling for. So thumbs up for that. And got Blair on TV, got Blair a win on TV, no less, over Naomi. Clean win. So yeah, it achieved some things. At least she's winning more than the Unholy Union now as the tag team champions.
Yeah, I do wish the balance had been a little bit more in terms of back and forth. We've seen with Andrade and Mello, part of the reason they've been so successful, and the same with Santos and Andrade last week, is that they've all had an even keel in the match. I think you can look strong in defeat when the better person just gets the upper hand of you for 3 seconds. In this one, it felt like Naomi had everything, and then Blair got it in the end, and that felt a little bit uneven for me. But I completely agree with your assessment of everything else. It was fine.
It was fine. It was absolutely fine.
And it is continuing in this story. It's not the last one, so we then got a video package of Kevin Owens, a reminder, as if it were needed, of how cool he is. And then backstage, A-Town Down Under are whinging. Specifically, Grayson Waller is whinging because Kevin Owens has a title match, and he's like, he doesn't deserve it. The only reason he has a match is because Cody sees it as an easy dub, since he's always lost to the bloodline. So Cody, if I was a champ, I'd do the same thing. Kevin Owens is behind him. Whoopsie poopsie. Don't you hate it when that happens?
They watched our episode of the WrestleTalk News where we had MJF on, and they were like, that's a really funny gag. We should steal that and do it on SmackDown.
Do you know, so original, that gag that's never been done before ever. He's behind me, isn't he?
Thank you. I've been waiting for someone to highlight how original that joke is.
Yeah, I've always thought it. Anyway, Kevin says, actually, Grayson, you're right. Like, yeah, I'm an easy dub. Oh, my win-loss record is bad. You're right. Damn it, you're right. Why don't we go out of the ring and you can prove it? Let's prove it. Prove it. And they set up. They're going to have a match for Grayson Waller to prove exactly how easy of a dub Kevin Owens is. Yeah. We get a memorial package to the late Arthur, and it's very touching. And then Owens and Grayson Waller are fighting immediately, and Ethan Page is here as well. Is something happening on NXT this week?
Well, it's because they were in Orlando. So
the
performance center's down the road.
Out.
So like Roxanne Perez was at ringside, Trick Williams was later on, Ethan Page there, because they're down the road.
Yeah, they
so
might as well
feature them on TV.
You get free tickets. The bell rings and Owen goes straight in with a drop kick and stomps a mud hole in Grayson Waller. Waller's back on his feet, delivers a bit of a right hand, but Owens takes back control with a senton. Goes for a cannonball, but Waller rolls out the ring, so Owens is right back on him with a clothesline to the outside, and he hits Theory as well for good measure. It all leads to, it's basically Waller does get a bit of a comeback spot, but really it's there for Kevin Owens to be battering him.
This is a glorified squash match.
Yeah. And it all leads to the moment where Waller goes for that rolling thing, which I don't ever know exactly. Is it a DDT that he finishes with?
That's what Theory does it into a blockbuster.
Right. I don't get it. The rolling thing for me.
It's momentum.
It's the same.
It adds torque.
Does it?
Yeah.
I just feel like you could get more momentum by running the ropes.
No, the roll adds momentum.
You stop. Now, but Owens catches him with a stunner.
Gives you a +2 buff.
It doesn't. Owens catches him with a stunner instead and a pop-up powerbomb, which is low-key my favorite finisher of all time. I just think finishers should A, come out of nowhere and feel like B, they absolutely destroy you and lift you in the air and slam you on the mat. Knocks the wind out of you. Job done. I absolutely love it. Gets the 3 count. Post-match, he takes Waller to the outside, and this was fun. He sort of holds him in his face in that kind of very Kevin Owens way and screams, "You want the real Kevin Owens? You want the old Kevin Owens?" Signaling that he's going to powerbomb Waller on the apron. But Theory stops it, brings out 2 chairs, and the pair of them are going to take out Kevin Owens when adrenaline in my soul. Here comes Cody Rhodes to a huge pop.
Yeah, this crowd were very excited to see Mr. Rhodes here.
It was massive. And then they use the chairs to take them out. There is a sort of lovely little shot of Cody looking out up the ramp. Behind him is Cody Rhodes, is Kevin Owens with the chair. And Kevin never really hints that he's thinking about using it, even though some people have talked about, do you turn him heel, do whatever. Puts the chair down. This is the moment. They both got the chairs down, and they sort of nod at each other like, yeah, we're mates, but also we're going to fight. And then Cody goes to pick up his title, but Owens gets there first, picks it up, takes a look at the belt, hands it to Cody, pats him on the shoulder, and walks out. And Cody has a sort of daunting look on his face, but also a weird, like, there he is.
Yeah.
I was hoping this would come out kind of face. I really liked this little segment.
Me too. I also like the pop-up powerbomb is... he won with that because that's the old Kevin Owens. Like that's the old Kevin Owens finish. We're not winning. We're not finishing with the stunner here, which is new Owens. This is NXT Owens finish. And you're right as well. Like him then taking him to the outside to be like, you want the old Kevin Owens going to do the apron powerbomb. That's kind of what Cody wants. So Cody wants to see that fire out of Kevin Owens again. It's kind of almost a bit like the Danielson situation you got in AEW at the moment. It's just like, where are you? Like, where's this guy? Like, where is the Danielson I saw at X, Y, and Z? It's kind of what Cody's looking to get out of Owens here, and we're getting that. What I would like to see from this, and kind of where I'm hoping this goes, is that Cody has not realized what he's actually getting himself into here. Is like, there is wanting to see the old Kevin Owens, and then being in the ring with the old Kevin Owens, who might be more vicious and dangerous than you remember. And so I really like this. And I like A-Town Down Under, I guess they are on SmackDown. Like there was a report they might have been drafted to Raw as part of a trade because they were on Raw a couple of weeks back.
Oh, that was just a settler score. Yeah, but no.
But there was a story. I think they even said it as a backstage thing of just like, they did a social media thing of being like, we traded them to Raw for something else.
Oh, I didn't.
But I don't think they ever really followed up on it. So they're just back on SmackDown now, and like
that's what they're there for.
That's what they're there for. Like you have it's Angelico on. AEW. You sometimes have job guys.
Yeah.
And at the moment, these are your job guys. I am so not into this Grayson Waller Austin Theory split though.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's I don't disagree. But yeah, I thought this was a very effective segment, and also we've got 2 weeks, 2 more SmackDowns before Berlin, and on the strength of these 2 weeks, I kind of like this idea of be careful what you wish for. Yeah. I also like the idea of like you sort of patronize me into giving me this opportunity. Yeah. Is that thought of Cody does see it as an easy dub. Gonna get in his head at any point. There are sometimes good accounts on social media, and there was this one, I think it's Myth Gifts, who often posts rundowns of things and points out little subtle moments and real psychology. Did a great one on Sami Zayn and Gunther at WrestleMania. This one, they sort of pointed out that babyface is not Kevin Owens' default. Like, being a good guy is not his default. And actually, it's very easy for him to slip into. And that kind of moment of him holding the chair, even though it wasn't necessarily conscious in the performance, it was present in that moment. And we as fans are used to seeing that moment of Kevin Owens turns on people. I
also don't think you need to turn Kevin Owens heel. You just need to have him become Kevin Owens.
The flavor of it is there, which is nice. Solo's backstage again, more Ula Fale business, and then Legado del Fantasma are having a lovely dinner.
They were, weren't
posh
they?
Restaurant.
Yeah.
And
nice wine.
As happens when you're at dinner with one of your friends and maybe they've had one wines too many. Angel is off on one. He's really going off about something, but Escobar sort of cuts him off and says, "We've been complacent, ignored, and undermined for weeks. Don't allow them to make us forget who we are. We are Legado del Fantasma. It's not just a name, it's a legacy, and it won't be diminished. Next week, he'll take the US title and send LA Knight back to the trailer park with everybody saying Escobar C." I'll go straight on to the next bit because LA Knight then comes out for a promo. Another huge pop, and I stand corrected. Last week, I wasn't sure I liked the new theme. His new theme is his old theme with some added punch, and I do like it. I love it. LA Knight says he may be a little bit of trash mixed with a bit of flash, but he'll put Escobar on his ass. All right, Dr. Seuss. And everybody's saying LA Knight. Yeah. I really liked these segments. I thought they were effective in continuing the thing without having to have, a promo train or a contract signing or anything like that. It got over that LA Knight is massively popular with the crowd.
Yep.
So if you're tuning in for your first time this week, here's a guy with a belt on. People love him. It also gave the fans what they wanted. They got to be able to do the LA Knight. Yeah, it shows why he's the US title, why he's the US champ. He's easy with the mic, nice and easy. And then in the Legado del Fantasma side, I like that you were talking about, do you believe Michin's going to win the belt or not?
Mm-hmm.
Right, probably not.
No.
Do I think Santos is going to win the belt or not? Probably not. I feel like on the strength of how popular LA Knight is with the crowd, taking the belt off him immediately is probably not the best bet. But I still need to believe going into the match that not only is this guy a threat, but his group is a threat.
Absolutely.
And Legado have been a little bit... He's right. They have been a little bit diminished. They sort of haven't been around. They haven't necessarily been part of these major storylines. This is an opportunity for them to feel sinister. And there's something almost in the arrogance and the mafia boss way of Santos performing here, which had me believing... I mean, you could make a case for him winning the belt, and that's really all you need.
Absolutely, that's all it takes. Really, is just that it's what Michael Cole said about Sami Zayn going into Elimination Chamber. It's like, look, the odds are not really in his favor, but there's always a chance, and that's kind of it's what wrestling is. It's just making you believe that the other guy could possibly win, even if it does feel like a foregone conclusion. I think with the Michin Nia Jax thing, it's different here. I think because he does feel like an actual threat to the belt,
right?
Because he's winning matches. And now he's going up against a guy who's also winning matches, and those two are going to collide. So yeah, like I think this is good, and I really enjoyed this. Also, it's like because you've got the big closing angle, like so you got like a good sort of 10, 15, 20 minutes set aside for that. You haven't really got a lot of time left on the TV show to do a big contract signing or an in-ring segment or anything like that. Because if you do that, then you can't have a match like DIY versus the Street Profits given time, or like Andrade and Mello being given time. It's all about pacing your show out. And I think just having this as a 5-minute segment that is one video and one short promo does way more than not doing anything at all, but also then just doing an extended contract segment, which affects other things on the show.
You're dead right about that, because we've spoken about this a lot. I'm always talking about the pacing of the show, and especially when, like, for instance, last week, Jade and Alba get 2 minutes. And here in this moment, it's Blair and Naomi got more time. There was a commercial break in the middle of it, but they got more time in their match, which is good when you're portioning your 2 hours, which when you remove ads and whatever actually comes down to about 1 hour and 20. You're pacing it properly is a good thing. So very smart decisions all around. We go backstage where Michin is smiling coming out of Aldous' office. Chelsea and Piper come to thank her for interrupting the tacky celebration ceremony and reiterate that Tiffany does not care about Nia Jax, otherwise she would have made it better and more appropriate to Nia's aesthetic. Chelsea says, "Can I call you Mimi?" Which Michin says no. So she says, "Mimi." I almost did what you did, but I preferred to watch it. I'm glad that I just watched it instead rather than get involved. And Meechin said, well, it was good that you didn't get involved because now I have a title shot because I did that. So Chelsea storms into Nick's office and is cross about it. Nia, meanwhile, clatters Meechin into the door because she's very cross. As she would be. Your celebration's been interrupted. And then Aldous orders her into the office following Chelsea and Piper. I kind of want to know if they had any conversations. Well, I would have liked to have seen Chelsea and Piper leave and be like, we'll come back later or whatever, something like that. Simple segment?
Simple segment. Reference to My Super Sweet 16. That is something I do. That is a pop culture reference I do understand.
From MTV in 2004.
Yeah.
What was the reference?
That's what Chelsea said was.
I see. She just said the words.
Yeah, she just said like that was. It was a celebration that was a bit like My Super Sweet 16.
Right. Gotcha. Do you remember that one where someone got a car and she cried because it didn't arrive at the right time?
I do not. I mean, like that sounds like every episode of My Super Sweet 16.
I think it was her birthday hour. It didn't arrive at the birthday hour.
Entitled pricks being given lots of things that they don't deserve.
Quite.
Also, shout out to Wade, actually, on that opening segment. I didn't get to mention this earlier. Wade said that it was better than anything that the British Royals have ever accomplished.
He absolutely did do that. That's true. And I'm going to give Wade some props here as well, because up next was the Street Profits versus DIY to crown number one contenders for the tag team champions. And I put my notes away for this because I wanted to just watch it because it had the potential to be a bit of me. And spoilers, it delivered. I read somewhere that Johnny Gargano said they wanted to do a black and gold match, and so they did. Yeah. Essentially. And it's a reminder really of what the DIY and Street Profits could be. I haven't got a rundown of the match because I was just watching it, but the TLDR is there were loads of near falls, and it was loads of fast-paced actions and tags and blind tags and one-upsmanship, and every near fall got the NXT face, and it worked on me. Every reverse and counter sequence really got me. The finish itself, which was a fairy tale ending that hit hard. Dawkins' chin wobbled in the slow motion, but he kicks out at 2, which allowed Wade to give a proper, like, how do you kick out of that? Like, come on! Gargano hits a suicide dive to the outside, then goes for a springboard spear. It's his second of the match. While the first one connected, this one didn't. He was caught by Dawkins, who hit a neck breaker, and then they hit a super blockbuster for the 3. At this point, when Ford is up on the top rope, the crowd are going so nuts that I'm convinced an interruption is going to happen, like an interference is going to go down. But no, they were just excited, which was really nice. They were vibing. I love tag teams. I love wrestling. I love this. This was great. I absolutely adored this match. If you are going to, sorry I haven't recapped it properly, but you should watch it.
Yeah, this is one of those you should go out your way to watch. This was an awesome main event. Really, really good. Very NXT. Like, you know, it was what Gargano was talking about, as you mentioned there. It was like he wants this to have a black and gold feel to it. And, you know, the black and gold style of wrestling is very much from that Ring of Honor, PWG, that indie style of wrestling, the Evolve style of wrestling that has now almost become a WWE house style as well. And it's just great to see it. Like, and this is what we expected the caliber of wrestling to be when Triple H took over, because this is what we were getting in NXT, because he just basically took PWG and Ring of Honor, pressed Control-C, Control-V, and he did it under WWE production values. And this is great. This is exactly what you'd want. This is kind of my style. Like, I love this style of wrestling. And I had a wonderful, wonderful time with this. It's also great to see, and I don't know if this is done to be a pointed thing. Potentially feels like it, but it could also just be that, hey, we need some new tag teams, some fresh faces. It's come in the same week that Bobby Lashley has left the company. Bobby Lashley is now officially done with WWE. He's been moved to the alumni section. He could be AEW bound. And unfortunately, the act with Street Profits and B-Fab and Bobby Lashley just got over like a fart in a church. And that's because it was never given a chance to be anything other than a fart in a church. So now that Bobby's gone, it feels very much like a point made to be like, well, let's give Street Profits this excellent main event and a big win, and they're now the number one contenders to the championships. Because the way you could look at that is like Bobby Lashley was holding them back. And I think this was a very smart move. I think it's the right team to win as well, because we've just done DIY versus the Bloodline. So let's get a fresh team in there. Last point on that. And it's just great to see the Street Profits wrestling again. Right. Because we had it taken away from us for like a year and a bit. So it's just wonderful to see them actually being the Street Profits again. This is why we fell in love with them.
So that's kind of where I was about to go. So I'm glad you said that, because where we were about a year ago, if we're honest, was a moment of the Street Profits have kind of done everything that they need to do. Right. So they need to either split or they need a new gimmick. And that's kind of what was inferred at the beginning of the Bobby Lashley thing. It was, they came out in like sharp suits, and they were a heel act immediately because they were battering people. They
turned heel.
But then people liked them, so they just went, well, okay, I guess we'll make you faces, and then we'll put you against the Final Testament. And it didn't work. Like, for one reason or another, and I don't know what it was, it just didn't connect. It didn't feel natural. It didn't feel like the fit. Any potential that came from that very initial attitude adjustment petered out and fell apart with a whimper. So this was a reminder of what the Street Profits are. It was almost like, all right, let's just go back to basics and just let them do some wrestling. And actually, in a weird way, it's worked out for the better because I was so excited to watch them that now I'm like, oh, can I just watch this every week?
100%.
And look, that might last for 6 months maximum. And then we go back to, it's time for them to split. There was always this argument that Ford was going to be the singles push star. He should have had a singles push by now. He was in that elimination chamber for the US title. And there was an argument at the time, I think I was making it, that he maybe should win it. In that, everyone kind of forgot about how good Angelo Dawkins is.
Always do.
And we saw whether it was the run around the ring, pounce kind of move that I genuinely thought had separated Tommaso Ciampa's shoulder, or the neck breaker catch out of that diving spear situation. Just a reminder that Dawkins is so good as well. And together they have a magic.
Yeah, he's got a wonderful hot tag.
Yeah. And B-Fab just is a good manager. I like a manager. I'm old school in that way. I like someone being on the outside hustling to get them an opportunity, and they're kind of putting over in the commentary that B-Fab is what has got them this opportunity. It's wrestling. It's all a lie. But let's use it. Let's use her as this manager who's got them this opportunity. Whether or not they win the titles, I think you probably want to keep on the bloodline going into potential war games. But it's just nice to see. Yeah. And a competitive division is always healthy, as we've seen with the US title.
Absolutely.
So overall, I thought it was quite a good SmackDown. I very much enjoyed myself.
Me too. Very, very good.
Had great wrestling, great tag team wrestling, and nonsense.
This is a show, SmackDown that is, sort of as a whole, that is really feeling the benefits of the post-SummerSlam periods. Because boy howdy was that show treading water post-WrestleMania. Now it feels like they had that one killer angle when they murdered Paul Heyman. But every other show felt like it was just sort of copy and paste from the previous week. So I felt like nothing was really happening. Nothing was really moving forward. Since SummerSlam, man, like these 2 weeks, really, really good. Really enjoyed SmackDown.
Yes.
So which brings us on to AEW Collision, which is ending up its little summer season that it was doing in Arlington, Texas.
The sports arena.
I'm kind of going to miss it a little bit. I really like this. I haven't been on one of these shows to talk about this. I like the stage setup that they have for Collision. The crowd is always nuclear hot. It's done AEW wonderful favors because they've got tax credits off the back of it. You could probably argue this is what's led to them getting the huge stadium show in Texas as well. They're creating a very good relationship with the state. So yeah, I've really enjoyed this little run that they have had. And I'm going to mean this as the politest way possible, and I do mean this as a huge compliment. It feels like seeing my favorite local indie on TV. It kind of when I was there watching this, it kind of reminded me of watching something from York Hall, watching York Hall, but with these super high production values and stuff, because it's just this very small, intimate place, and I really, really liked it. We opened with Britt Baker taking on Harley Cameron. Had a fun little match. Yeah, it was a totally okay match. Harley Cameron's only had about 10 matches or so in AEW, so I think she's really holding her own. And for those who've been worried about Britt Baker being people not being into Britt Baker after the MJF story came out, which doesn't see. I feel again that's the wrestling bubble. The wrestling bubble are talking about this, but then you see her on TV on both Dynamite and on Collision, and the people are going nuts for her.
I will say, by virtue of it being this, renegade upstart company, this stick it to the man company, the bubble lends itself to AEW far more, which is why your pot shots at WWE on AEW get big reactions. Meanwhile, a pot shot at AEW from CM Punk gets nothing because the WWE fans don't live in that bubble as much.
They're WWE fans who are watching WWE.
But at the same time, to your point, I think the fact that she got a good reaction sort of shows that people can both be within the bubble and sort of not care.
I think the Acclaimed are another example of that. I've talked about this on the Dynamite reviews before, but if you go on social media, people will tell you that the Acclaimed are the absolute worst tag team, and this tag team division is complete death. But they get great reactions every time they're on Dynamite, and great reactions here on Collision as well. It's sort of this it's the bubble. Like, we sort of believe our own BS sometimes.
And also, we're not backstage. I don't know what's going on backstage. I don't know what is so for me, there's almost a part of it. Whereas, and you know this about me, I kind of prefer just to let it be. I do like a bit of gossip, but not when it feels kind of toxic. So I was quite glad for it. It's like, right, Britt's here. She's going to be on the show. Also, just the presence of a Britt Baker on the show made it feel like, a big Collision. Like, you know what I mean?
I had the same thing when Mercedes Moné came out.
That was what I was going to get to, because often Collision, especially at the beginning, it felt like we had the sort of brand split thing, and we had our Collision guys and that
House
great
of Black are like a Collision team, FTRA Collision team.
Right, and then we have and then there's that one moment where we had a Kenny Omega match and MJF was on the show, and it felt like, all right.
Yeah.
We kind of had that moment here with Britt Baker as well, and I just good for her to get a little run out before All In, and reminder that actually this was a match that we wanted to see when Mercedes arrived for a reason.
I'm really excited for the match at All In. And I think this match did a really good job of it. Plus, the post-match angle really helped with that as well, because Monet came out with Camille, and she basically just sort of like sent the brick house down to the ring, and Baker got the kendo stick out to protect herself. Camille took that from her, snapped it over her knee, and then battered her blue, and then left her laying. And Mercedes Moné sort of posed over her and held her belt. It was like, that is a very, very good, effective angle.
I only wish the snap over the knee had got a bigger reaction, but I think maybe it was because it took a little bit too long. But I love Camille in this role.
Yeah,
I think she's real good.
We had a Ring of Honor Tag Team Championship match up next between Dustin Rhodes and Sammy Guevara taking on the Undisputed Kingdom. This was a terrific match. I had such a good time with this. This was like proper old school wrestling tag match, and it featured some gaga and chaos and nonsense at the end, because like they're just having this great match. It's very back and forth. The Kingdom are getting their licks in. Dustin and Sammy, they're working over Sammy for a lot of this to build to that Dustin hot tag. And then when I say everyone ran down for the finish, everyone ran down for the finish. Roderick Strong ran down. Black Tora, Beast Mortis ran down. The Von Erichs ran down and put in, ooh, they're going to get you with the claw. Ooh, it's the claw. We're going to get you with the claw. Cage of Agony ran down. The Conglomeration ran down. Like, every single person ran down. It was bedlam. And so much fun. And within all of this, you were getting some really good near falls for both the Kingdom and the Team Good Guy. And this crowd were going ape spit because it's two Texas boys. It's in Dustin and Sammy, and then they got the win. And they win the Ring of Honor Tag Team titles. Not that really particularly means anything these days, but man, I thought this was great. I had a wonderful time with this.
I thought the match was really good, and I completely agree with you. I really like the sort of all brawl situation. I also liked, how hot the crowd were. The titles confuse me. I don't understand the logic in putting both the trios and the tags on Dustin. I wonder if this match needed to be a title match. Do you know what I mean? Maybe I'm overthinking. It's the ROH belts, as you say. It doesn't really matter. But we've now got two sets of tag belts on Dustin, and I don't get it.
Honestly, either the six-man tag confuses me way more because we just unified them with the AEW Trios titles, and then we just brought them back like 2 weeks later. So like, I don't see the point in having the Ring of Honor six-man tag titles unless, of course, you are going to get a Ring of Honor TV show,
right?
And you're going to do so. The reports were that they are looking to take Ring of Honor a bit more seriously and have a defined roster for it. There are some people who are being signed to Ring of Honor specifically. Right. They're being signed to Ring of Honor contracts. When they did the Texas announcement for All In next year, Athena was credited as AEW Ring of Honor Women's Champion. So I feel like there's something they are trying to like take a bit more seriously. So maybe in that sense, they wanted to have the six-man belts back. In which case, don't unify them in the first place. Like have a bit more of a forward plan for these things.
For me, the trios were the ones that make sense. Like I like the idea of Dustin Rhodes and the young Von Erichs winning those belts together. The tag ones and the Sammy Guevara thing just feels very. Yeah, that's something. Click that. Yeah. These guys are available. I like Dustin Rhodes, and I also like this kind of like. Last Outlaw maybe is towards the end of his contract. I have no idea, but the giving him opportunities and it works. So that all works. It sounds like I'm whinging, and I suppose in a way I am, but I'm just like I don't get what you're doing with those belts there.
Well, I think the answer is Texas.
Yeah, and it always is.
I think the answer is like we had 4 Texas boys win belts.
Yeah.
In Texas. So. Good on you, I guess.
Why not?
I really like this next. We had a little video package here where the stars of AEW gave their thoughts and their predictions for the match between Danielson and Swerve, of being like, here is why I think Swerve is going to win. Here's why I think Danielson is going to win. Here's why I don't think Danielson stands a chance. Here's why I don't think that Swerve knows what he's gotten himself into. So it's really, really good. I like it when wrestlers are presented as taking things really seriously and kind of given like, this is my insight as a wrestler into this situation.
It's one of the things I've always liked about AEW's production is when they do, it would be whether it's like Shivani, JR, Renee, like they would have them sit down to camera giving their thoughts on something, and I always really liked that as a it just felt it feels distinct, it feels different.
Absolutely.
It's a very AEW thing,
particularly when you have like Jim Ross, Paul White on there.
It's like punditry.
Jerry Lynn being part of this, like Jerry Lynn being on TV. I'm a man who's 40 next year, so I was like, Jerry Lynn, Jerry Lynn's on TV. What's Jerry Lynn got to say about this? I'll listen to what Jerry Lynn has to say about this. Then there's part of me who's just like, I mean, I know it's tricky because of his condition and stuff. I'm like, I hope Dean Malenko shows up,
right? Because
I'm a man who turns 40 next year. I'm like, show me the stars of my past,
stars of yesteryear.
We had Jericho.
We'll get that in a minute because of
Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho cut a promo on Hook and Tommy Billington because Jericho is going to face the Bulldog next week. Dynamite Kid, rather, next week in Cardiff.
The first Dynamite outside of the US. Lied Tony Schiavone.
Who's the
if Tempest were here, he'd be fuming at you right now.
Well, yeah, Canada is basically just it's the 53rd state, isn't it? That's what they say about it. That's what they say about Canada. Like, it's literally in that
Not my words.
It's literally in the South Park song "Blame Canada." They're not even a real country anyway.
South Park is not geopolitically correct.
It was in 1999 when it was a good show. But yeah, I'm joking, of course.
You acknowledge Canada as a.
I acknowledge Canada.
Say they're a country. Say it.
They are a country that is part of North America.
Okay.
As a continent.
He said it was the first Dynamite and Collision outside of the US. He didn't say it was the first outside of North America.
Well, I'm sure that's what he meant. But he is an old man.
Either way,
there
is a little part of me that's like, I can get to Cardiff on Wednesday.
Well, do you know what?
I've not got a lot on that day.
I was talking to some lads.
Should we go?
Well, I was talking to some lads on the train back from Rev Pro from York Hall. I don't know if I mentioned I went to that show.
Only roughly about as many times as I've read Beckinich's book.
I was talking to, and they're going to that Cardiff show, and they were like, you can get these tickets here, and they're only like 80 quid a pop. And I was like, I mean, I could get to Cardiff and back. My only problem I've got is that I am away from my family all next weekend, like all this coming weekend.
It don't matter.
Like I'm moving to London for 5 days effectively for the weekend, from Friday through till Tuesday, because I've got to be here at the bank holiday Monday to review All In, and I'm doing my board game night on Thursday, so I should probably spend a bit of time with my family.
If I can be naughty, there are tickets left on the hard cam side.
Honestly, that's what the guys were telling us. Like, and it's not even on the hard cam side. You can get them on I know what you mean, like on the side.
I was doing a hard cam joke, but yes, there are tickets available.
Well, not only that, they've reduced the prices on them because they're not selling particularly well. So you said you can get like second row tickets for like 80 quid. Mm-hmm. So, like, it's because, unfortunately, I think they've made two errors here. Number one, like, smegging everyone in this day and age. They're charging too much for tickets. Yeah. But B, you're doing All In London.
So a lot of people have gone to London or whatever.
So, coming to London for this. I guess it's only a couple of hours on the train to get to Cardiff, but that's an inconvenience. Honestly, if this was in London, I'd gone to.
But also, I imagine there are people who spent a lot of money coming to London, and they then can't justify tickets for going to Cardiff or whatever. And Cardiff locals are like fantastic, but it's a relatively small city in comparison.
But of course, it is. Like the smart thing that WWE do when they do these sort of like European shows or shows within Canada or whatever it is, which is part of America, of course, is that they do the SmackDown in the same city or town that they're in for the pay-per-view. So you almost buy like a package deal. Like if you'd have done, say for the sake of argument, All In Wembley Stadium and Dynamite and Collision in Wembley Arena.
Yeah, I do appreciate that they're going to a city that isn't London.
Me too.
To that point.
100%.
Well, Principality's right there. They could have done both in Cardiff.
I completely agree with you on that point, but I think logistically, I wonder if that is one of the reasons why. Like it's coupled with Not a particularly hot company at the moment. Ticket prices are too darn high, which is true of everything at the moment. I believe there are people who are really pissy that Sabrina Carpenter is charging so much money for having
That's a lot of money.
for having 2 good songs and a middling album. It's just what I've been told. I've only heard one of those songs, and it's not down the road from where a lot of people are coming in from London, because people are traveling in. I know some people who are traveling in from the States to come over for All In, but they are not going to Cardiff as well because they're traveling over to London. They've got their accommodation booked for London.
Yeah, and there's the benefit of then I live in London, so I'm already here, so I could just. I should go to Cardiff if I can find. I've got a 2 together rail card. If I get to,
honestly, I actually think it would be quicker for me to get to Cardiff than it would for me to get home from London.
From All In, yeah. It's an interesting one, and look, there's some really good matches on that show.
It's Claudio and Okada.
Yeah,
I think that's really good. I think Jericho versus Tommy is a bit of smart business because that's a British guy there getting a huge match. I don't think it's a terrible lineup. I think the Will Ospreay MJF stare down. They're having a show. I think that is going to be an awesome segment. I think it's a good. Excuse me. I think it's a. Actually, that tripped out at me. I didn't mean to do that right into the microphone. I'm hoping that did not get picked up. But
now we've drawn attention to it.
Well, now I'm going to draw attention. I just belched into the microphone.
After spending a few minutes talking about how you don't know who Sabrina Carpenter is, then you burp into the microphone.
I didn't say I didn't know who she was. I'm well aware of who she is. I've heard Espresso.
D-A-D.
I know that song. Switch Me On Like Nintendo. I know that track.
Yeah, of course, it speaks to your people.
Well, until my wife pointed out
Should we switch me on like Sega and then he'd be all over it?
Well, my wife pointed out to me because I was like, oh, I know this song. She was like, yeah, but in your head, when you hear Switch Me On Like Nintendo, you think of the NES. She's talking about the Nintendo Switch.
She's absolutely switching.
That's why it's a good line. I'm like, I did not even put those two together because I heard Switch Me On Like Nintendo. I'm like, yeah, when I press the button that turns on the NES.
Yeah, no. The young kids don't know what switches are other than the console.
Yeah, I flicked that on my Game Boy to make it go bleep. But anyway, so I think there's sort of 2 arguments to be made there. One of which is should have run it in London because you probably would have done better ticket sales wise, but also I actually think it's a good thing to not just do London and run elsewhere in the country. Maybe you could have done a little run of things then. Done Dynamite here and then gone to Manchester or gone to Scotland.
Go to Newcastle, man. Newcastle don't get shows and they should because they're a hot crowd.
So yeah, I think there's a reason why it's not doing great. Jericho's jacket was yellow. Hologram beat Angelico, and it was a very fun match. Hologram wins. When Hologram, I don't get to talk about Hologram a lot because he's a collision guy.
Boy.
When they sort of debuted it and they announced that it was coming, I got real Suicide vibes from this.
I did too. I never said it, but yes.
A real TNA. Hey, we got this new character from the video game. It's Suicide. And you came in and you were like, no, I want to see Sanjay Dutt, actually. I'd actually much rather just watch Christopher Daniels wrestle, considering that's his Christopher Daniels.
Yeah.
I'd much rather just watch Christopher Daniels wrestle. This hologram thing's working, though. I was quite sort of poo-pooing it at the start. But I'm quite enjoying it. And I think it's getting over as well.
So this is the thing. The wrestling is real good. And I like him. I like it. It just has a ceiling. I don't see hologram AEW World Champion. Maybe that's me. This is my Cody Rhodes clip. Maybe, but
I don't see him dethroning Swerve Strickland.
Do you know what I mean? So I can't help but see it as special attraction. But then I suppose that's what it is.
Well, that's
and
it.
There's nothing wrong with that.
That's something to have on a show. Is a special attraction because you put Rey Mysterio for the longest time in WWE was just the special attraction guys. You put him out there and he does some flip-de-doos and the crowd go mad for it. And they buy the mask, and they buy the t-shirts.
Yeah.
And then you get over to a point, and then, unfortunately someone passed away, so he won the world title. But, yeah, sometimes you just are a special attraction.
Yeah.
And at the moment, it's working.
Yeah. And it's a cool entrance. It's cool. The matches are cool. It's fun.
It's fun. We got I really, really like this, an awesome video package for the Tiger Driver.
Yes.
This is really good. This was essentially the history of the move, how the creator of the move retired it, Will Ospreay brought it back, and now he himself has realized why it was retired in the first place and does not want to do the move anymore. So even though people keep saying to him, just hit the move, hit the move, he's like, dude, Bryan Danielson, I wrestled him. I hit that move and he could not feel his arms. He is lucky that he is still wrestling now and is in the main event of All In, because I could have been the man to have ended his career much earlier than it potentially is done. and I can't. Even though MJF is an absolute dirtbag, I don't want to be the guy that ends him. I thought this was really, really effective. I thought this was really, really good. And I think it's with this Tiger Driver storyline. I'm getting real Continental Classic vibes about it, of thick people pretending it's more complicated than it actually is.
Right.
Of people being like, oh, yeah, but Bryan Danielson's in the main event, so it's not a good story. It's like, well, you are missing very simple plot points.
Which Bryan Danielson potentially, I'm nervous about watching Bryan Danielson in the main event of All In, which is a part of the effectiveness of this storyline.
Yeah. I think there are people being purposefully thick about this story. And I think this video package is there to be like, oi, thickos. It's actually a very simple story. Just pay attention a little bit. Kind
of the reason I was looking around was for this. Because there is a segment either in this one, this is for those who can't see it, or audio medium, Mick Foley's books. One of either the Have a Nice Day or Foley is Good. There's a section where he talks about moves and the safety and people doing it at home. I think it's Foley is Good. He mentions the pile driver, the tombstone pile driver, and he says, Undertaker is one of the safest workers in the world. I always felt incredibly safe in his hands, but anytime he lifted me up for the tombstone pile driver, I felt nervous. Certain wrestling moves have the potential to compress your spine and break your neck and put you in a wheelchair. Sometimes non-complicated wrestling moves have the potential to do that as well. So taking them seriously and being treated like that and allowing that to feed into the real storyline, I think is great. And I think it's one of those things where a move like this should be used for only a special occasion. It's one of the reasons that not Carolina Reaper, that's the girl from my GM. What, the California Sunset? What's it called? The Sunset Flip. You know what I'm talking about?
The Sunset Flip Powerbomb.
No, the
Panama Sunrise.
Maybe that's where I'm getting confused. California Driver. What's it called?
What are you?
The one where the independent shows when they do it as an opener.
Oh, the Canadian Destroyer.
Thank you.
Also, a Panama Sunrise, which is Adam Cole's. I'm going to do a little leap into this, which actually adds talk to the movie.
Stop it. And that one, in that case, it kind of does. But one of the reasons I find the fact that has become as routine as a punch for me is because that looks like that should really hurt, and that looks like very dangerous. So treating a move with this level of gravitas, I love it.
Well,
it venerates the move and the people who've made it.
If I may, just draw some comparisons a little bit, the Styles Clash was AJ's finish for years and years and years and years. He hit that move 20,000 times, and it was the finish he did. He hit it once and he broke someone's neck because it just went wrong, and he broke someone's neck and effectively ended their career. And he stopped doing it. This has happened within the real world. I don't know if I mentioned this. I was at the Rev Pro show a couple of weeks back, but I'm not saying that for a joke. No. In that, there was a match between Zazoya and Ricky, and they did a Canadian Destroyer, and it slightly went a bit wrong, and that's end the match. I don't know if it was the Destroyer that ended the match early, or if it was the Shooting Star Press that ended the match early, but they had to call off the match and just, throw up the X and can't get Ricky out. Some moves, even moves you've seen 1,000 times over, can hurt someone. So I don't know why there are people who are pretending that this is not an effective storyline, or are saying that this is a storyline that doesn't make any sense, because it just does.
Works for me, brother.
Jack Perry very quickly beat Danny Orion. He then got out a body bag and he spray painted Danny's face half white to make him look like Darby Allin. Put him in the body bag and also put the TNT title in the body bag as well, because he's got his own TNT title design now. And I'm like, yes, this gimmick is back. I miss the days when the TNT champion, had their own specific design for the TNT championship belts. So this is a big thumbs up from me.
I like it as well. I think it looks good. Also fits with the kind of murky, grumpy, moody scapegoat.
Yeah.
The one thing I will say is spray paint is very bad for your skin and also quite bad for your brain if you inhale it too much. So I hope for Danny Orion's sake that it was not real spray paint.
It was working spray paint. We got a recap.
Real spray paint.
We got a recap of the Trios situation, and House of Black and the Gangbang Gang cut a promo on the patriarchy, with Christopher Daniels revealing that at All In, it is going to be a 4-way match for the Trios Championship. So the patriarchy defending against the House of Black and the Gangbang Gang, and a mystery team that will be announced, will be determined on next week's Collision.
Gang.
Gangbang Gang. I got it right the first time.
Okay.
Which will be next week. They're having a wild card thing, so 2 teams will qualify in a 4-way ladder match.
No, they called it a London ladders match.
They certainly did.
What is that to you? What
Well,
makes it London? Is it a guy standing at the bottom? Before you go up and retrieve the belts, you have to stand at the bottom and look at it concerned and then add 100 quid to the invoice. Is that?
Yeah, there's a Starbucks in every corner.
What a great 2007 joke that was.
There's way too Pret-a-Mangers in this ladder match.
Great.
That's what London says to me. There's American sweet shops that are actually just fronts for for drugs. Allegedly.
No, not allegedly. They've been found.
I'm not saying it. I'm saying allegedly. That's what says London to me.
London ladder match.
Yeah. Overpriced shite. That's what it will be.
I'm well excited to watch that match.
Me too.
I'm so ready for it.
I'm so into this. I've been kind of like down on this little trios thing. And actually, I've been kind of actually really into it. The only reason I became down on it is because we were doing the exact same nonsense in the tag team division. And I got really annoyed at that because I was like, well, we're doing it over here. Why are we also doing it over here as well? But this kind of has sort of separated them out a little bit for me.
Bit of flair, bit of different style.
I also like as well, they were talking about this is Christian's home turf. The ladder match.
Oh, I think I'm in London.
And they were like, you ready to feel nostalgic? And I kind of was like, that's cool. Like, that's, it's like, hey, you like ladders, right? Well, do you want to feel the pain of what it's like being in a ladder match with us? And then there's some really like cool stuff about this. And yeah, I will laugh my tits off if next week that the fourth team is Death Triangle. Right. Like, I will absolutely laugh my tits off it is. Because they didn't announce who the teams are.
No.
So I kind of feel like it's got to be a big team or, certainly an impactful team to be like, this is why we didn't announce the teams ahead of time. I mean, it's going to get out because they're taping Collision after Dynamite. So it will get out before next Saturday. But yeah, I'm kind of excited for this. And I'm excited to see it all in.
Me too.
And I think that probably does complete our 10-match card as well. Because there's 10 matches currently. They may add like 2 more to the pre-show. But I think we'll then have our 9-match card.
I hope not. I'm running out of space in my journal. I journal all of the cards so that I can remember who's won and what I liked and didn't like. And I've got a page per show. And WWE is easy, half a page. AEW, I'm like, there's reams of it, mate.
We then had Claudio Castagnoli versus Leo Rush. Match to give Claudio a win ahead of his match with Okada. He won with the elevated European uppercut.
This was absolutely perfectly fine.
So it was. Stoke and Chris cut a promo on Willow and Ishii. I thought Stokely Hathaway was awesome in this moment here when he fired up and he said, yeah, I'm the real Stone Pitbull around here, Tomohiro Ishii. He had that little croak in his voice that was just like, you don't believe that at all. I am stupidly excited for that match because I'm really looking forward to seeing Tomohiro Ishii and Stokely Hathaway in the ring together.
It's an excellent pre-show match, isn't it?
It's a perfect pre. And what they announced within this is that the winner of that match gets to pick the stipulation for the all-out match for the CMLL Women's Championship. We then had actually one of my favorite things on this show. Because again, this feels like one of those moments just like, hey guys, pay attention. This Bryan Danielson thing's not as complicated as you're trying to make it out to be. Eddie Kingston cut a promo from home, not to give an update on his situation because he's like, look, I'm injured. I'm not going to be back anytime soon. He's got this great big bushy beard. And he was like, this is for Bryan Danielson because who are you? Like, who are you? Who is this Bryan Danielson? Because this isn't the Bryan Danielson I saw wrestle Kenta in one of the greatest matches I've ever seen in my life. This is not the Bryan Danielson that used to like push me around. This is just some guy who's got no fire. And if you've got no fire going into this match, then what's the point? Why are you even doing it? Why have you even put your career on the line? Where are you? And I think this is the story that we've been telling over the last month or so with this Bryan Danielson thing is that like he's been taking this a little bit lightly. And I think him doing interviews where he keeps saying like, I don't need to win the AEW World Championship is all part of this story of, yeah, I don't really know who I am anymore. Like, I'm retiring. What is Bryan Danielson if I'm not wrestling? And I think that's what we're going to see on Dynamite next week. We had the swerve moment where he kind of took out Danielson and he cut this amazing social media promo. We're going to see that true Bryan Danielson. And I think, smartly, have saved it for the go-home show to make you want to buy the pay-per-view. So I thought this was awesome. Really, really like this. I mean, you hate it because you hate Eddie Kingston, right?
Infamously, yeah. I thought it was rubbish. What's the point?
Much like what he was saying in the promos. Like, what are you even doing here?
Did he even tidy his house? No. I'm being facetious.
Of course you are. We had Mariah May very quickly beating London Dior. I wrote down her name.
I didn't catch the name, and it annoyed me.
Well, yeah, they didn't.
It was so quick.
They didn't put a graphic for her. They didn't put a name bar up for her. But I believe her name was London Dior. So she won with the hip attack and the Storm Zero. Then Toni Storm unveiled her latest film, which is basically to let you know that timeless Toni Storm is back. She's previously been like, just wearing this sort of like black outfit and sort of like, the makeup and whatnot. In this, she took that off to reveal that she is back as timeless Toni Storm, and she got this awesome promo. And I think if I'm looking at these matches, because there's a lot that I'm excited about for All In, I think this is my most anticipated match on the card.
It's certainly going to be a fun one. I mean, Toni Storm's emergence into this character was this time last year. I remember the God Save the Queen entrance kind of thing, and there was she was very well received in that moment. So I feel like it's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, I'm really, really looking forward to it. Lastly, just before we talk about that, I'd imagine one of the pre-show matches we're going to get, if I was a betting man, is Saraya coming out, being last year I won the world title here, and this year I'm not even booked. I want a match right now. Jamie Hayter's music hits. Jamie Hayter comes out, quickly beats Saraya.
I would like to see it.
Yep.
It'd be a lovely moment for Jamie.
The Acclaimed did a promo where they did some rapping, and then they took on FTR in a fantastic main event that ended with a time limit draw. So Tony Schiavone announced on commentary, at All In, it will be a three-way between FTR, the Acclaimed, and the Young Bucks for the AEW World Tag Team titles. I've said my piece on this on the Dynamite show, where I ragged on this because if I have to watch the other company do this every other month where you do DQ finishes to set up three-way matches, I don't want to see the alternative doing the exact same thing. I don't know whether I've been as annoyed at this if WWE didn't do this all the smegging time, but it really irritated me on Dynamite. And they did the time limit draw here. It's a perfectly fine way. I'd much rather time limit draw than another DQ or something like that.
Yeah,
or a double count.
I agree with that.
To get to the match. But the in-ring action was incredible. And again, I think it is that bubble mentality that some people have, particularly when we're in these spaces and we're kind of like all hanging out together, is I'm kind of like I'm not really into this tag team division. Like I'm really enjoying the Young Bucks, but I'm not really interested in them versus the Acclaimed. And I've kind of seen the Young Bucks and FTR done a lot. So I'm looking for some like new and fresher tag teams getting into this scene. I'm looking at what happened in the ROH tag title picture. I'm like, oh man, look, there's like 5 other different teams here that I would actually much rather see in the position that FTR and the Acclaimed are in. But then I watch these two have a match, and there's this little voice in the back of my head being like, what are you complaining about?
Yeah.
Because this action is awesome. And it turns out FTR are really good at tag team wrestling. And it turns out the Acclaimed are really good at tag team wrestling. And it turns out the Young Bucks are really good at tag team wrestling. I don't know why I'm not more excited about this. And I think that is actually probably it's a me problem than it is an AEW problem.
No, I don't think it is, if I can be completely honest with you. I think there is something a little bit like, where is the real fire in the story, and like maybe it's the distraction with all of the Team Elite versus Team AEW and all of that, those businesses, where it feels like rather than it just being a competitive division, it's a little bit hazy in the booking and mazy, and that has been a sort of Tony Khan way sometimes. And then when you do get your sort of DQs and who's it going to be and whatever, and it does get clouded. So both two things can be true. Both the booking of it has been a mess.
It's an absolute mess.
And that the match will be good. Both of these things can be true. Like, I loved watching the Bucks and FTR last year. I'll be very happy to watch it again this year with the addition of a three-way, adds an extra element to it. My thought was that, kind of what you alluded to earlier, with a multi-man tag match in the trios division and a multi-man tag match here, keeping in a stadium show, especially when there are some people sat quiet at the back, keeping your eyes on all facets of it can be a tricky thing. I don't want to put too fine a point on it, but the way they plot those out are going to be really interesting. Making one of them a ladder match buys them a bit of slack because it creates a bit of chaos, which is kind of what's necessary. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm intrigued. I thought there were a couple of moments in this match where my heart was in my throat. There was a superplex spot that nearly went awry. There was a bit where there felt like a bit of a miscommunication between FTR that I don't think was on purpose, and I don't come to expect from FTR. Maybe they hadn't had their cold brew yet. But I am into the match at the end, but I do think getting there has been not the most effective.
That's it. I am so done with the DQ to set up a triple threat. I thought when they did it with the trios titles, that was really creative. And, Christian Cage being the special guest referee.
Yeah, that was where it felt different.
Him hitting a spear, but still counting the 10.
Yeah.
I thought that was really...
Because that's heel work, and you're in the moment, and you're in that point specifically, you're taking advantage of the opportunity you've been afforded as a special ref.
But I think if you're then being like, okay, great, I have done this storyline over here to set up a multi-man ladder match for the trios titles... If I then just don't do the same thing in the tag team division where you've done a DQ to set up another match which ends in a time limit draw to set up a 3-way at the pay-per-view, I just think it's really, really quite lazy.
Yeah.
In the same way that it's really effing lazy when Triple H does it every other month with on both of his shows. If he just wants to set up a triple threat match, he just sets up 2 teams, then has one of them get DQ'd, or he sets up 2 singles match and someone gets DQ'd. I think it's a really lazy trope.
It is.
And I don't think it's very good here, but I do know, much in the same way with WWE, when they actually wrestle, I'll be fine.
This is it.
Because as I said, the FTR are great, the Acclaimed are great, and the Young Bucks are great. I also don't begrudge Tony for pushing the Acclaimed into this position, because last year, at All In, they were surprisingly probably the most over act that was not better than you, baby.
Yeah, I would be intrigued.
They were hugely over in All In last year.
I have a slightly sour taste in my mouth with Acclaimed over the past years since, because they were massively over, and it was a fun moment to do all the scissoring during that moment.
I've told the story before, but there was a group of guys that would not let me past every time I wanted to go get to the bar unless I scissored them, because that's the team they were there to see. They were so excited to see the Acclaimed.
And some of it has because of Max Caster's sort of attitude online has sort of soured me a little bit on the act. He's just a knob. Okay. But not in like a work way, in like a what are you doing that for? Right. Do you know what I mean? It's just sort of soured me on them a little bit.
Okay.
But I still think Anthony Bowens is great. And, I clearly the act is over. So I'd be interested to see how over they'll be in Wembley.
Yeah. Well, based on the reactions they get on Dynamite and the reactions they got here on Collision, I think it'll be fine. I wonder if again.
Also, you can't escape. Just sometimes people are knobs. Some of the people I love the most are knobs.
Some of your favorite wrestlers are probably knobs because
that was growing up in the Attitude Era is a bad time. Do you know I had one action figure. You know who it was? Val Venus. Yeah, that's unfortunate.
That is unfortunate, isn't it? Well, he doesn't know the name anymore.
Well, there you go. Head over to valvenus.com.
But yeah, I thought it was a very good episode of Collision. I really, really enjoyed that main event, and I loved the Dustin Rhodes Sammy Guevara tag match as well. So yeah, I thought this was it's what you expect from Collision, which is 2 really, really good matches and then some squash matches in between. Yeah, and I thought the video package work in particular was really, really good.
Yeah, and I like that it lent into their style. Yeah, that I really liked.
But yeah, I think that'll do it for this episode. We'll be back tomorrow with the WWE Raw review. So do join us here on the WrestleTalk Podcast channel for that. If you haven't already, please do press the subscribe button. Give us a little thumbs up as well. Leave a comment down below with what you thought of these shows. You just checking what's on Raw tomorrow. Yeah, I'm curious. I believe Punk's on the show.
Of course he is. Pete Dunne versus Sheamus, the Final Testament versus the New Day and Odyssey Jones, and the Women's Tag Championship triple threat match between the Unholy Union, Damage Control, and the Pure Fusion Collective.
That's right. A match I'm really, really looking forward to because we're already setting up the Powerbuff Girls winning back those titles.
Powerbuff Girls.
So I'm glad we're spending our Raw time for a nice, easy defense for the Unholy Union in a match that was set up by a DQ. That's all we've got time for on the show. We'll be back tomorrow to talk more about that. Until then, I've been Luke Owen, DAD. That has been Dan Layton. Jam that jam.